The sun filtered through the tall windows of the central station, casting golden patches on the marble floor that seemed to shift with each passenger's step. Lauren clutched the handle of her suitcase as if it could prevent her from collapsing right then and there. Around her, the muted sound of luggage wheels, fragmented voices, and murmured farewells created a familiar setting. But for the first time, she was the one leaving. At 28, Lauren Bennett hadn't imagined she would be leaving everything behind. But perhaps the hardest part wasn't the move to another country, but everything left undone, unsaid. It wasn't exactly courage that propelled her at that moment. It was the exhaustion of someone who had tried everything to keep something standing. The daughter of a nurse who worked 3 shifts a week, and a teacher who taught more with his eyes than with words, Lauren learned early on to fend for herself. She grew up surrounded by books and silences, in a home where love was discreet but steadfast. Her dreams were always too big for the boundaries of the neighborhood she lived in, but she carried within them the steadiness of the roots that supported her. She met Derek almost by chance, on a night when everything told her to stay home. A small college party, the kind where conversations evaporate quickly, but he stayed. He sat next to her on the threadbare sofa, spoke softly, with a calmness that contrasted with the fast-paced world. Derek didn't smile to impress. He smiled because he heard something he genuinely found funny. It wasn't love at first sight. It came later, gradually. In the messages exchanged amid exams and deadlines. In the silences shared between one cafe and another. In the care he took to listen to her ideas, even when he didn't quite understand. Lauren found herself trusting him before she even realized she no longer trusted many people. They built themselves like someone building a house with their own hands, slowly, with flaws, but with truth. And even so, even with so much effort, not everything endured. Now there, amidst the hustle and bustle, 5 years had passed since that first meeting to this moment at the station. 5 years of a routine built with 4 hands, lazy Sunday breakfasts, honest discussions about movies, the silent support when she missed an opportunity, the genuine celebration when he finally managed to get into a respected architecture firm. It was a relationship that didn't need grand declarations, just a glance across a crowded room to know they were connected. The platform was starting to get more crowded. Lauren checked her watch. 20 minutes left until boarding. 20 minutes that seemed to separate 2 different lives. In her bag, along with her passport and documents, was the official letter from the multinational company that had offered her the position of project coordinator in another country. It was everything she had always wanted. Recognition, challenge, the chance to prove her worth on an international stage. Lauren remembered Derek's expression when she told him about the offer. They were on the small balcony of his apartment where they shared moments together. He was watering the plants, always attentive to the small details. When she finished speaking, there was a silence that seemed to last forever. "This is amazing, Lauren," he finally said, using her full name, which was unusual. His eyes were moist, but his smile was genuine. "It's exactly what you've always wanted." The atmosphere became awkward between them. In the following weeks, they tried to talk about the matter practically, like adults. They discussed long-distance relationships, occasional visits. Maybe he could transfer later. But the truth lingered between them, unspoken yet felt. Derek's architecture firm was his dream come true, just like this job in another country was hers. He had deep roots in the city, his family, weekend project management duties, the group of friends he had from childhood. For Derek, the place mattered. On their last day together, packing the final boxes, Lauren took another chance. "There are great architecture firms there, you know. I read about some that work with urban rehabilitation, exactly what you love to do." Derek looked at her with that crooked smile that always made her heart race. "I know, love, and I'm not saying it will never happen, but I can't just drop everything right now, in the middle of the community centre project with my mum needing support." He hugged her from behind. "This doesn't mean it's over. It means we need time to adjust everything. Time. The word echoed in Lauren's mind as she watched the large station clock. Maybe time was precisely what they didn't have. That last night they spent together, she had whispered, "I'm going, but in my heart, I'll be waiting for you." It was a genuine promise when she made it. But now, about to leave for real, a doubt gnawed at her. What if waiting meant forever holding on to this lingering feeling? What if their love wasn't strong enough to survive the distance, time zones, and new separate experiences? The boarding pass in her hand felt like it weighed a ton. A metallic voice announced the first call for her train. Around her, people moved hurriedly, dragging luggage, checking schedules on large digital panels. Last call for train 247 to the international airport. Immediate boarding at platform 3. Lauren took a deep breath. This was it. She got up from the bench where she'd been sitting, adjusted the strap of her bag over her shoulder, and began walking towards the platform. Every step seemed to simultaneously take something away from her and bring a new weight. As she passed through the large glass door separating the main hall from the boarding area, Lauren allowed herself one last look back. The golden light of the late afternoon sun filled the space, making people appear to walk through a dream. For a moment, ridiculously, she imagined seeing Derek's familiar silhouette emerging from the crowd. It was just a trick of the light, of course. He had said goodbye to her at home earlier. It made no sense to come to the station just to relive the pain of separation. He was too practical for that. It was one of the things she loved about him, his realism tempered with kindness. Lauren turned to continue on her path when she felt it. A light, almost hesitant touch on her shoulder. Warm, familiar. A touch she would recognize even in the dark, even while sleeping. The world seemed to slow down as she turned around. There he was, Derek, with hair more tousled than usual, breathing heavily as if he had been running, his brown eyes more intense than she had ever seen. "You promised you'd wait," he said, his voice slightly hoarse. "You won't need to." Lauren felt the ground sway beneath her feet. "Derek, what are you doing here?" Her voice came out in a whisper. He held a creased brown envelope in his hands, and there was something different in his face, a vulnerability she rarely saw in him. "I've been thinking a lot since our conversation on the balcony," he began, his words a bit rushed, "about what really matters, about choices. Derek, my train—" I know. Just listen to me for a minute, please." He took a deep breath. "Yesterday I quit my job." "You did what?" Lauren couldn't process what she was hearing. Derek loved his job. It was part of his identity, an achievement he had fought for as much as she had for her international position. "I quit," he repeated, now more calmly. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done professionally. But then I realized it would be even harder to stay here without you." Lauren felt her eyes filling with tears. "But your project, your family, all of that is important. But you're my family too, Lo." He opened the envelope and took out 2 tickets. "This isn't about following you. It's about building something together, somewhere new. It's about not letting the fear of change prevent me from being with the person I love." "What do you mean?" asked Lauren, her voice almost gone. "In the past few days I've contacted some college friends. Remember Miguel, who studied abroad with us? He has an architecture firm there now, specializing in sustainable projects. We talked at length." Derek smiled, that smile that always made her feel at home. "I don't have guarantees. I'll need to start over, maybe in a more junior position at first. But I'm willing to try." Lauren couldn't hold back the tears that streamed freely down her face. "Are you really coming with me?" "If you still want me." He held up the 2 tickets, one-way ticket, and one of courage, as my dad would say. The final boarding announcement echoed through the station, but Lauren barely registered it. All she could see was Derek standing before her, offering not just company but a commitment she hadn't even allowed herself to hope for. "And your mum? Her recovery?" "She's better. She was actually the one who gave me the final push. She said she'd never forgive me if I let happiness slip away out of fear." He stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "I always thought place was so important, you know, having roots. But I realized I can grow roots anywhere, as long as it's with you." Lauren let go of her luggage and jumped into his arms, not caring about the people passing by, the train that might leave, the uncertain future. There, in the warmth of that embrace, was the only certainty that mattered. "Are you sure?" she whispered against his chest. "It's such a big change. I don't want you to regret it later." Derek gently pulled away to look her in the eyes. "The regret would come if I stayed, Lo. If I let you go and forever asked myself, what if? I'm not saying it will be easy. We'll face challenges we can't even imagine yet. But we'll do it together." He glanced at the large station clock. "And now I think we need to run, or we're going to miss this train." Laughing through tears, Lauren picked up her suitcase again. Together they ran to the platform, reaching it just as the conductor was about to close the doors. Breathless and smiling, they found their seats in the nearly empty carriage. As the train began to move, leaving the station behind, Lauren looked out the window at the city that had been her home for so long. The familiar streets, the parks where they had walked, the buildings that held so many memories. But instead of nostalgia, she felt an almost electric anticipation for the future. "What are you thinking about?" Derek asked, intertwining his fingers with hers. Lauren smiled, finally understanding the lesson she would carry with her into the new life awaiting them. Waiting doesn't mean standing still. Sometimes love is about moving together, even without knowing precisely what awaits at the next destination. "I'm thinking that love isn't about places or distances," she replied, squeezing his hand. "It's about choosing, every day, to build something bigger than ourselves." The train gained speed, taking them towards an unknown but shared future. And in that certainty, there was all the assurance they needed. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.